What is up, my fellow strivers? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into the swirling world of perfectionism. We're going to explore 15 signs that might mean you, or someone you love, is a perfectionist. Buckle up, get ready for some self-discovery, and let's do this thing. Alright, let's jump right into the deep end with our first sign. Do you find yourself setting the bar really high, not just wanting to do a good job? We all want that. I'm talking about standards so high that even you get stressed out trying to meet them. This, my friends, is classic perfectionism. It's that voice in your head saying good enough is never good enough. Constantly chasing this unattainable ideal can take a toll. Next up, we've got a big one. Self-criticism. We're talking about that voice inside your head that's constantly critiquing your every move. It's like having a negative Nancy permanently attached to your side, whispering doubts and insecurities into your ear. And the worst part, this voice is often way harsher than we'd ever be to anyone else. It's like we reserve our most brutal judgments for ourselves. This kind of relentless self-criticism, it's not productive. It's downright paralyzing. Let's talk about fear, guys, specifically the fear of failure. Now, everyone experiences fear, it's a natural human emotion, but for perfectionists, this fear can be crippling. It's like this looming shadow that prevents you from even starting things. Have you ever put off a project or trying something new because you were terrified of not being perfect? The thought of failure is just too much to bear. The key is to not let the fear of failure control us. Chapter 4. Obsessed much when your brain won't quit. Do you ever find yourself replaying past conversations in your head, analyzing every little detail? Or maybe you obsess over tiny mistakes, even if nobody else noticed? Yeah, that's your perfectionism talking. It's like your brain gets stuck in this loop, replaying the same scenarios over and over again. This obsessive thinking often focuses on the negative. It can drain your energy, steal your joy, and keep you stuck in a cycle of negativity. Chapter 5. Just tell me I'm good enough. The need for reassurance. This next sign is all about reassurance. We all crave validation sometimes, right? It's nice to feel appreciated, but for perfectionists, this need for reassurance can be intense. It's like you constantly need someone else to tell you you're doing a good job. And if you don't get that external validation, it can send you spiraling into a pit of self-doubt. True confidence comes from within. Chapter 6. Destination unreachable. Setting goals that set you up for failure. Let's talk about goals. Setting goals is important, right? It gives us direction. But here's the thing about perfectionists. Sometimes, our goals can be our downfall. We set these ridiculously high expectations for ourselves, these grand visions of success that are impossible to achieve. And then what happens? We fall short. We don't reach those unattainable goals, and we feel like failures. The key is to set realistic goals. This one might seem counterintuitive, but trust me on this. Procrastination. It's a behavior we often associate with laziness or lack of discipline, but there's more to it. It's a classic sign of perfectionism. Perfectionists set incredibly high standards for themselves, and the fear of not meeting those standards can be paralyzing. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, Miles. How can procrastination be linked to perfectionism? Perfectionists are all about getting things done, right? They're the ones who meticulously plan and execute every task. They're the ones who never miss a deadline. But here's the twist. For perfectionists, procrastination can be a way to protect ourselves. It's a defense mechanism. It's a way to avoid the potential pain of failure. By delaying the start of a task, we avoid confronting the possibility that we might not meet our own high expectations. If we wait until the last minute to start a project, we can always blame the lack of time for any shortcomings. This way, our self-worth remains intact, even if the outcome isn't perfect. Here's a tough one. Being overly critical of others. Now, it's one thing to have high standards for ourselves, but when those high standards start to bleed over into how we judge the people around us, that's when it becomes a problem. It's like we hold everyone else to these impossible standards, these same standards that we struggle to meet ourselves. And when they inevitably fall short, we judge, we criticize. But here's the thing, guys, nobody's perfect. Let's talk about feedback. Now, feedback is essential for growth, right? It helps us learn, to improve, to become better versions of ourselves. But for perfectionists, receiving feedback can feel like a personal attack. It's like our whole identity is being called into question, and our instinct to get defensive, to deflect. But here's the thing, guys, feedback is not about tearing us down, it's about helping us grow. So, the next time you receive feedback, try to approach it with an open mind. Alright, let's get real about self-esteem. It's something we all struggle with at some point in our lives. Whether it's at work, in our personal relationships, or just in our day-to-day activities, the feeling of not being enough can creep in and take hold of our minds. Perfectionism and low self-esteem often go hand in hand. We strive for perfection, thinking that if we can just be perfect, we'll finally be happy and accepted. But the truth is, perfection is an illusion. We set these impossibly high standards for ourselves, we inevitably fall short, and then we beat ourselves up about it. This cycle of setting unrealistic goals and then feeling like a failure when we don't meet them is exhausting and damaging. We tell ourselves we're not good enough, that we'll never be good enough. These thoughts become a part of our internal dialogue, and we start to believe them. And over time, this constant negative self-talk, it takes a toll on our self-esteem. It affects how we see ourselves and how we interact with the world around us. We start to believe those negative thoughts. They become our reality, and we feel trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and insecurity. But here's the thing, guys, you are enough. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy of love and respect. Embrace your imperfections because they make you who you are. With all your flaws, you are worthy of love, of happiness, of success. Remember, self-esteem is not about being perfect. It's about accepting yourself as you are and knowing that you are enough. I know. We talked about fear of failure already, but it's such a big one for perfectionists that it deserves its own chapter. This fear, my friends, can be paralyzing. It can prevent us from going after our dreams, from taking risks, from putting ourselves out there. We become so afraid of failing, of not measuring up, that we don't even try. But here's the thing about failure. It's not the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone. Let's talk about that voice inside your head. You know the one that's constantly criticizing, judging, and second-guessing your every move. That voice, my friends, is your inner critic. And for perfectionists, that voice can be particularly loud and persistent. But here's the thing, you don't have to listen to that voice. You can choose to challenge those negative thoughts. Chapter 13. Mistakes happen, learning to bounce back. Let's talk about mistakes. We all make them, right? It's part of being human. But for perfectionists, mistakes can feel like the end of the world. We beat ourselves up, we dwell on our shortcomings, we let those mistakes define us. But here's the thing, guys, mistakes are not failures, they're opportunities for growth. So the next time you make a mistake, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Chapter 14. Expectation overload. Why you can't expect perfection from others. Alright, let's talk about expectations. Specifically, the expectations we place on others. Now, it's natural to have expectations in relationships, in friendships, in our interactions with the world around us. But for perfectionists, those expectations can be unrealistic. We expect everyone to operate at our level, to meet our standards, and when they inevitably fall short, we're disappointed. But here's the thing, guys, people are not projects. Chapter 15, Reality Check, time to redefine perfect. Alright, my fellow perfectionists, it's time for a reality check. Perfection, it doesn't exist, it's a myth, it's an illusion that we chase after but we'll never actually catch. And you know what? That's okay. Because striving for perfection, it's about the journey. It's about embracing our imperfections and using them as fuel for growth. Outro, you're more than enough. Remember, you have everything within you to achieve greatness. Embrace your unique qualities and let go of the need to be perfect. Celebrate your small victories and acknowledge your progress. That was a lot, right? It's easy to feel overwhelmed when we set such high standards for ourselves. But it's important to take a step back and breathe. We dug deep, we explored the ins and outs of perfectionism. We learned how it can affect our lives and relationships. Understanding is the first step towards change. If you resonated with any of these signs, know you're not alone. Many people experience these feelings, and it's okay to seek support. Perfectionism is something many of us struggle with. It can be a heavy burden, but recognizing it is the first step to overcoming it. But here's the good news. It doesn't have to control us. We have the power to break free from its grip and live more fulfilling lives. We can choose to challenge those perfectionistic tendencies. By setting realistic goals and being kinder to ourselves, we can make significant progress. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content on personal growth. Your support means a lot and helps us create more valuable content. Until next time, my friends, keep striving, keep growing, and keep being awesome. Remember, the journey is just as important as the destination. Stay positive and keep moving forward.